the...
Colors weave into a spire of flame. Distant sparks call to a past still unnamed. Bear this torch against the cold of the night. Search your soul and reawaken the undying light.
Today is marking a very special occasion. The Nintendo Switch turns 8 years old, and not only is it 8 years old, but this is going to be the last main year of the Nintendo Switch's lifespan. Heck, this could be the last half year, because we still don't know when the Switch 2 is coming out as of the making of this video. And because of all of this, I wanted to take the time to celebrate the life of the Nintendo Switch, go through a lot of different titles that many people love, and really talk about what makes this system so great. So, I have recruited the help of a bunch of different content creators to go through the life of the Nintendo Switch and talk about some of the greatest titles that the system has to offer. So if you enjoyed this video, definitely make sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe, all of that stuff down below, as well as subscribing to all of the guests that I have in today's video. Thank you to everyone for taking part of this. And before we get into talking about all of the games, I must say, we gotta start by going back in time a little bit to the reveal of the Nintendo Switch. Remember this trailer? I sure as hell do. I remember reacting to it and uploading it to my YouTube channel over 8 years ago in October of 2016, which I think is absolutely crazy. Of course, this trailer did not really show too much, just kinda giving us a general gist of what the system was about, showing us that you could take it from being a home console that you're playing on the TV, to being able to instantaneously put on the controllers to the side of the system and pull it out to be able to play it in handheld mode. You'd be able to take this console to many different places, like to an airport or on a plane, or even on road trips. This thing could go anywhere. We got some glimpses of games, we saw Mario Kart, we saw Splatoon, we saw Breath of the Wild, we even saw the newest 3D Mario game at the time, and they didn't even tell us what the name was. But the one thing we did know is that we'd have to wait just a little bit longer to see more information on the Nintendo Switch. We wouldn't hear more about it until 2017. 2017 started off with a bang, with a presentation right in January, unveiling even more information about the Nintendo Switch, including the name of Super Mario Odyssey, some information about Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Splatoon 2, and just a buttload of information. And of course, we learned that the console would be coming out 2 months from that time. It would be coming out on March 3rd of 2017, and boy oh boy, when that day came around and it launched with Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, I think I know what most Nintendo fans were doing. I know that I immediately unboxed it. I remember I was actually doing some volunteer work at a school, at my old middle school, funny enough, and after I left for the day, my mom brought me my Nintendo Switch that she had picked up from GameStop when she was at work in town, and it was an amazing feeling to be able to unbox that console, unbox Breath of the Wild, and play it for the very first time. And I am so happy that all of that is on my channel and documented for the rest of my life. And not only did the console have a strong launch, despite the fact that there was a very big shortage of the console, 2017 was also packed to the brim with games. Between Super Mario Odyssey, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Splatoon 2, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, ARMS, it was just chock full of games for people to sink their teeth into, and one of the strongest launch years for any Nintendo console. Now, one thing I want to do for each year that we cover, you're going to be seeing some familiar faces, some people that have collaborated with the channel before, or just potentially other YouTubers you may know from other places, and they will be sharing their favorite Nintendo Switch games of all time, and we will be going by year. So let's see who has favorite games on the Nintendo Switch from 2017.
My favorite game on the Nintendo Switch would have to be The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. The thing is that I've always preferred Mario games over Zelda games on any system, and I've even tried older Zelda games like Ocarina of Time and A Link to the Past, but none of them have ever made me really get into and get as immersed in those games as much as Breath of the Wild did. I remember the first day that I ever got my Nintendo Switch, I got 2 games for it. One of them was 1-2 Switch, which I think we all know how we feel about that game for the most part, and the other one was Breath of the Wild. And ever since I started playing it, I just couldn't put it down, and I got so immersed into everything involving that game. Just running around Hyrule, doing some shrines, getting some Koroks, doing the Divine Beast, and even doing some side quests. Nothing has ever really made me get that immersed in it, and it was just a whole bunch of fun. Doing all the different puzzles, whether you're in or out of the shrines, you have a whole bunch of platforming and exploration to go through in this game. And all the different types of enemies that are just going to keep you on your toes as you're going through everything. All of these things combined into one big game that just make me want to keep coming back time and time again. However, there was one mechanic that I thought I was going to hate going into Breath of the Wild, and that was that your weapons are going to break. But after playing it for a while and being able to try a bunch of different weapons and bows and shields, I rather enjoyed it. I might not be the greatest fighter, I may not be the best adventurer, and I sure as hell don't want to sit down and actually collect every single Korok. But the thing is, Breath of the Wild will always have a place in my heart as being one of my favorite video games ever.
My favorite Switch game? Hands down, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. It's not just a game, it's an experience. It puts you in control of how you play. It's not like old Zelda games where you are limited with how you move. You can take your time, you can really absorb the world, or you can rush down the Divine Beasts and beat up Calamity Ganon with a stick. Hyrule is massive. And it's not just about the size, it's about the details. Every mountain, forest, ruin, it tells a story if you just know where to look. You can spend hours wandering around, discovering hidden secrets, and soaking in the sheer beauty of each region. And the gameplay? Can you name a game that gives you more freedom with how you tackle the challenges, whether it's sneaking past enemies, using the environment to your advantage, or just running in swords blazing? The possibilities are endless. No game has come close to it. Well, except for my other favorite Switch game, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
Hey everyone, my name is Swiftjar, and my game of choice for the Nintendo Switch is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. This probably doesn't come as a surprise to anyone that knows me or my content. I essentially owe everything to this game for my entire YouTube career, along with the Mario Party franchise as well. I absolutely adore Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. From the very first second it was re-released on the Nintendo Switch, I absolutely fell in love with it. I've always loved the Mario Kart series, with Double Dash being my favorite, but Mario Kart 8 Deluxe just had so much content in the base game. Of course, it was a re-release of Mario Kart 8 from the Wii U, but it just brought everything from that game plus all the DLC from it, and then put it on the Nintendo Switch with some online that works from day one, and of course the Booster Course Pass that came out later just added so much to that experience for me. It of course added double the amount of tracks from the base game from 48 to now 96. It also included a whole lot of new characters, and just also a bunch of just nice to have features, like being able to actually select what items you will race with, and even adding just codes to lobbies. Even though they did release that part in Wave 6, it was still a nice to have feature after all these years. My favourite thing from the Booster Course Pass, though without a doubt, was just bringing over all the content that was from Mario Kart Tour into Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I'm talking about the city tracks, the nitro tracks, some of the characters. It was just really cool to have. I would honestly be lying if I didn't mention though the fact how this game just brought the entire community together, and I got to really witness that through my YouTube channel. To this very day, I have so many people that have subscribed to me just thanks to Mario Kart, and I really do appreciate that. And it is so damn exciting to have that experience come full circle again, just thanks to the Nintendo Switch 2 and the next Mario Kart. Honestly, if they just replicate what they did in 8 Deluxe, add a whole bunch of more characters, tracks, and everything else in between, kinda similar to Mario Kart Tours every fortnight cycle with new tracks and content, I honestly think we could even have something better. But regardless, I love Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the Nintendo Switch, and after everything, I'd probably say it's my favorite game on the Switch, or pretty damn close. And considering its sales numbers, I have a feeling there's a lot of people in the exact same boat. This is their childhood Mario Kart game, and we all absolutely love it.
Hey y'all, I'm Clark's Madness, Chris Clark. I literally run the Mario Party Madness charity events that Zach has been a part of. A lot of big content creators have also been a part of. We raise money for the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. As a big collectathon platformer fan with Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, Donkey Kong 64, nothing compares to the amount of content and the amount of replayability that Mario Odyssey, Super Mario Odyssey, completely like gives you. The amount of 999 moons, a lot of them are filler, but it still is a good grind. It makes you feel satisfied once you do it. But the game design of Odyssey is so good. I consider Odyssey the successor to Banjo-Tooie. The amount of collectibles you have, the purple coin challenges, which is sort of like the 100 coins, or the silver coin challenges from Diddy Kong Racing. The amount of outfits, the amount of worlds, the amount of, like, you could just get sucked into Super Mario Odyssey in a way that you can't get sucked into with a lot of other games. I know Breath of the Wild has the open world thing and aesthetic, but Odyssey is just so perfect in every way, and that was the strongest game they could have opened. I just wish we got a sequel. I wish there was some sort of representation with Sunshine in it. But even with all of that, Odyssey legitimately was a good game and a complete game when it came out. No DLC needed. I mean, it had the Luigi missions, but that's it. When it came out, it was Odyssey. It was complete. It was satisfying. It met our expectations. It exceeded them. And it was a really good time. Super Mario Odyssey, the best Switch game of all time.
After the banger year that was 2017, 2018 pumped on the brakes a little bit, and there weren't too many big launches. Kirby got his first game appearance on the Nintendo Switch with Kirby Star Allies, Mario got its first sports entry and its first party entry on the Nintendo Switch, and Pokemon got its first entry on the Nintendo Switch with Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu. But the one big game this year, the one that really finished off the year, was Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. So even though in terms of games this year definitely wasn't the most packed, there were definitely some good Nintendo games to be had. Plus, not to mention, there was some decent third-party support with Crash Bandicoot, Octopath Traveler, Rocket League, and even Fortnite. So we only have one person who had a favorite game from this year. Let's see what it is.
Hello, so good to see you. I'm Daniel with GVG, and when it comes to my favorite Nintendo Switch title, I think it has to come down to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. The Super Smash Bros. Series ever since the N64 has been so special to me. It's helped me to meet and get to know so many different people with every iteration of Smash Bros., and Ultimate is definitely no different. I'm sure there's other people on this video that I only know because of the connections I made through Smash Bros. And it's such a special title because this is the one that truly established that everyone is here. The 100+ stages, the 1,000+ songs, and the characters. So many characters established through the spirits, through the ones that assist you in battle, to the playable roster, of course. The playable roster is something that we always are just so focused in on every time a Smash Bros. Game is announced, right? The hype cycle for a Smash Bros. Game is unlike anything else in video games, and so many dreams came true through this title. We got characters like Banjo-Kazooie and Sora from Kingdom Hearts in a Nintendo game where they can beat each other up. That is absolutely still mind-boggling to me. And I can't imagine a scenario where a crossover of this magnitude would happen ever again. You know, the term everyone is here is just so all-encompassing, from not just the characters that meet each other, but from the communities that come together as well. If you are even a little bit interested or familiar with games, there are at least some characters in this title that you have an attachment to. You can connect with other people and maybe you'll find new interests from that as well. And that kind of connection with a game like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is just something that no other game can match.
2019 was another decently strong year for the Nintendo Switch. They had a lot that came out this year. Fire Emblem got its debut on the system with Fire Emblem Three Houses, and between popular sequels like Super Mario Maker 2 and Luigi's Mansion 3, this year is in contention of one of the better years for the Nintendo Switch as well. So, let's go and see what people's favorite games are from this year.
Hey y'all, Lana Ruse here. So I have been invited to share a little bit about my favorite game that was released on the Nintendo Switch. And my answer might surprise you. Anybody who knows me knows that I am a massive Legend of Zelda fan, a friend to all Pokemon, and always up for a good, cozy game or two. But the game that truly captured my whole heart for this system was none other than Fire Emblem Three Houses. This game is a tactical strategy game that tests your combat skills, allowing you to build units, assign them roles, and also get to know them as people. Taking you on an adventure through the bloody and complex history of the continent of Fodlan, you play as a mercenary turned professor, Byleth, who gets to usher a new group of students from one of 3 classes through their final years at Garrigmach Monastery. Will you join the Black Eagles and face a difficult crossroads? Will you walk alongside a troubled crown prince in the Blue Lions? Or will you fear the deer with the Golden Deer? I'm a Golden Deer lover myself, but I do also have quite the soft spot for Raphael. If you've ever played the game yourself, let me know your thoughts on who you'd go for. The variety in gameplay also kept me captivated through every single playthrough, with both monastery sections where you can complete many tasks and fetch quests, build skills in your units, and teach your students to become the best warriors they can be. Not only does this game boast an incredible soundtrack and a fun combat system with various difficulty levels and accessibility factors, the part of this game that captivated me the most is by far the character development that is noted in each student's journey. No matter which route you choose, you will always find yourself empathizing with the morally gray decisions that each person has to come up against, and it adds so much depth to the lore and all of the events that are taking place throughout the world. I'm not going to give too much away about the plot, besides telling you that you must play it for yourself, and I promise you it is worth the ride. With multiple branching paths, this game gave me hundreds of hours of fun, and I still find myself thinking about it and considering starting a brand new playthrough any day. So yeah, overall, I don't think this was the answer that I expected myself giving if you had asked me at the start of the Switch's life cycle in 2017. However, with the upcoming release of the Switch 2, I really just find myself looking forward to even more Fire Emblem titles that will hopefully bring me back into a similar world and take me on brand new adventures.
So, Astral Chain? Astral Chain came out in August 2019. A very interesting time for the Switch because that year was insanity with how many games came out that year. There were so many little distractions for this year that it's easy to lose track that this game has ever even existed, even though it sold pretty decently well. Platinum Games, at least then, not so much about the current people who are there now, were like the masters of crafting insane action games. And from all of them, I think I prefer this one the most. Once again, that's an insane statement. I 100% agree on that. But what that game does so insanely well is its sense of place, the combat, and the overall sense of story. You are in a futuristic world that's on the brink of collapse, and you're basically a police officer trying to defend it from the incoming threat of an alien species called the Chimeras. You do this by going to different locations and doing different investigations, and using your legions to help with that. your Legion becomes an even bigger role once you head into the astral planes, which is the other side of that game. And it comes into like the second part of that spectrum, where the Legion gameplay in Astral Chain puts that game for me up to like an 11. I love the interplay between a human character and a side character that you control with the right stick. And it doesn't sound intuitive, but it is. It's really well refined. And all the actions you do and all the little things that you see and can interact with make that game so fluid and quick and fun. Every time I replay some of those missions, there's an instant smile on that face that I cannot deny. What helps with that, and I think that's also a big part of it, is that the story in that game is really gosh darn good. Obviously, I shouldn't spoil too much. You should play Astral Chain, to be honest with you. But what I found intriguing about that story, it starts immediately with an anime opening, and it doesn't slow down from there. Like, every single intricate detail in that story makes you think about the sense of it all, the humanity, the chance of survival. There's a constant threat in that story that really doesn't light up until the very end, where you see that glimmer of hope like really come together. The final acts in that game are so freaking cool, and there is another song that plays on top of that, which still gives me a lot of thought and fun things to think about. Like, as a game, it's a complete package. And, you know, once again, you should play it.
You guys didn't think I wouldn't contribute to this, right? So, I gotta say my piece. Now, there's one game here that I know no one else has chosen, and I feel like it would be unfair and not right to not give it a special little shout out. And that is, of course, Luigi's Mansion 3. Luigi's Mansion 3, while yes, it is not my favorite Luigi's Mansion installment, and there's quite a few things about it that I obviously do not like and that I've been heavily vocal about criticizing, I still think that for many people, this is an amazing place to start a Luigi's Mansion journey, and here's why. Firstly, it brings the best features from both of the first two Luigi's Mansion games while also throwing in some new things. For example, human ghosts are back. The fact that we have human ghosts again is so freaking cool. And not to mention, most of their boss fights are actually pretty dang good. You know, I really liked a lot of them, especially that boss fight with Nikki, Lindsay, and Ginny up on the Twisted Suites floor. That boss fight was peak. But on top of that, the visuals and animation for this game are absolutely amazing and some of the best on the Nintendo Switch, period. I mean, you cannot argue that this game is not one of the visual showcases for the Nintendo Switch. You cannot argue that. And of course, it's still as fresh and unique as the first Luigi's Mansion was, offering some really cool ghost combat, even though I don't like the slam mechanic, and some really fun puzzles to solve. Now yes, like I said, there's a lot that I want them to improve upon for Luigi's Mansion 4, but as a package, as a game for the Nintendo Switch, I think this is still a really strong entry, and I feel like you would be kind of a fool to not at least give it a chance, especially if you liked the first two Luigi's Mansion games. It does some things differently, it takes some creative risks, and for me, not all of them landed, but I'd rather a game take some risks than none at all, and this game does a really good job with what it has. 2020, one of the most difficult years for a lot of different reasons. The world, of course, suffered a horrible pandemic, and, you know, it slowed down a lot in the world. Everything came to a screeching halt. But that didn't necessarily include Nintendo. Nintendo actually had a decent showing for a year that really should have been dead quiet. Between Animal Crossing New Horizons, which really kept people going through this pandemic, new Paper Mario game, and even a collection of some of the most iconic Mario 3D platformers, it's really hard to complain about Nintendo's output for this year. Third parties actually kind of came around too, with BioShock, Borderlands, The Outer Worlds, and a remake of SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom. This year, honestly, was not too bad, all things considered. Let's see what people have to say about the games from this year.
Hi YouTube, hi Zach's YouTube, hi ZakPackers. I'm assuming that's what you call yourselves. My favorite game on Nintendo Switch. I pondered this question. I really did, because love Zelda, love all of the Zelda games that are on Switch. I love the Mario games that are on Switch. I love all the tactical games that made their way on Switch. There's so many good games on Switch, but I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't say Animal Crossing New Horizons. I don't truly know if Animal Crossing New Horizons would stand out as like the best objectively game on the Switch to me. However, I feel like I need to call it my favorite game on the Switch because of how many more hours I put into that game versus every other game on the Switch. And I have a lot. As you see back here, I've played a lot of Switch games in my day, but Animal Crossing New Horizons, between the timing of it coming out right as the pandemic and we all got stuck in our houses for a year, between that and just it being such a good online multiplayer experience and all the stuff to do, it's a great game, don't get me wrong, even though it's no Animal Crossing New Leaf. It fills that hole in my heart for at least a short while. I do think it's definitely the most culturally important game on the Switch, to be honest. I think it got a lot more Switches into households and is a big part of the reason why the Switch is as successful as it is. And so as a Nintendo fangirl, something about successful game equals good game is always going to be true for me, so that's part of it too. But I love a game that I can get my mom to play, that I can get my coworkers to play, that I can play with people who don't usually pick up games and they feel just as welcome into that atmosphere as I do. There's something very special about that, and I've always been a huge Animal Crossing fan, and I feel like they did it just fine on the Switch, and I'm happy with just fine when it comes to Animal Crossing.
Convention Attractive Human, I'm RidersDX, and I just gotta give a big thanks to ZakPak for having me on this video. Nintendo Switch, what a crazy console this has been. So many iconic and honestly legendary titles have appeared on this system, both good and bad. But one title I really wanted to highlight in this video, because I know no one else is gonna highlight it, is Paper Mario The Origami King. I think as a Paper Mario title, it is such an overlooked title in the franchise. People think it's just another game along the lines of Sticker Star and Color Splash, although slightly better. I think Origami King is one of the best titles of the franchise. I prefer it over the original, for instance. The only game in the franchise I prefer over Origami King is actually the 1000-Year Door. If it didn't seem ridiculous to choose a remake for this video, I would have definitely gone with that. With the Origami King, it tells its own unique and epic adventure, and it's got this huge scope and its huge world, and you feel like you're traveling in a world that is bigger than any other Paper Mario game before it. The open world like feel of the game is something I really do welcome to the franchise, and I want to see expanded upon in the next title. And the origami style is just absolutely breathtaking, and I personally really enjoyed the battle system. It's not as good as a 1000-Year Door system, don't get me wrong, but it's still a really good system within its own right, and I thought Olivia in particular was a very endearing character, and I really enjoyed traveling with her throughout the entire game. I don't know, I think the Origami King gets way less credit than it deserves, and people need to stop sleeping on it. Origami, come on.
2021 was another pretty interesting year for Nintendo. I feel like, again, kind of like with 2018, there weren't that many really big titles, but I feel like a lot of Nintendo's smaller titles got some love. Between a new Mario Golf game, a remaster of a pretty popular Legend of Zelda game, a new WarioWare game, a new 2D Metroid for the first time on a Nintendo home console since the Nintendo Wii, and even some remakes of some pretty popular Pokemon games, this year did have a decent amount to offer. Let's see what people had to say about 2021's games.
Hey everyone, just a little bit of a Mario fan here from Game Explained with my pick for my favorite Switch game. I know what you're thinking. That idiot just gave it away because he's wearing the freaking hat from the game! And you would be 100% correct if this were filmed prior to 2021. Because as it turns out, even though Mario Odyssey is one of my favorite first-time experiences of the Mario game and something I still cherish to this day, I do have to say that I found myself returning to another Mario game on Switch much more often than Mario Odyssey and enjoying it even more upon replay. And that game is the latter half of Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. As in specifically the mode they tacked on to the main game, which I ended up loving far more, because Bowser's Fury does something that no other Mario game has done yet, and that's perfectly marry the 2D gameplay mechanics from the old school games, like the power-up system, with the more open free-roaming nature of most of the 3D games, and I freaking adore this. I love being able to play as Tanuki Mario, or Fire Mario, or Boomerang Mario, and going about these worlds in not just almost any order I want, but in different ways too, depending on the way I approach a level or the power-ups I have, and I just find that gameplay loop so addictive, and I think they dialed in something really special here. We have all these mini worlds contained within the much larger world, all connected together, which again gives you all those options to go about it. And that's not even to speak of the absolute brilliance of Fury Bowser himself, with where he can pop up seemingly at random at points as this giant imposing force, and it basically turns the game into a temporary hard mode where you have to fight back, and it's so great when you finally get the chance to grow to his size and take him on like Godzilla vs. King Kong style. And those Fury Bowser moments stand in stark contrast to the rest of the game, which is exactly as cheerful as you'd expect, if not even more so. I love the music so much in this game, especially when you ride Plessy, not just because Plessy is adorable by himself, but the music is just so happy and chipper, and really just everything about this game comes together in a way that is so satisfying, and that's why I find myself replaying it endlessly, because I just have a ton of fun with it. That's what Mario's all about at the end of the day, having fun. So I really hope the next Mario game takes a few cues from this game, as I think there's even more to explore in this space.
Hey everyone, Joey here. You may know me from my channel Ferris Wheel Pro, as well as other channels like Commonwealth Realm and formerly Game Explain, but if you know me at all, you already know what my top Nintendo Switch game is. It's Metroid Dread. It's just wild to me that we're talking about this game like it's a real thing, because for the longest time, it wasn't real. This was just a rumor, like an unconfirmed Nintendo-made game for the longest time that just didn't come out until 2021, and now it's a real thing, and it is one of the best, if not the best 2D Metroid game of all time. Some might call me blasphemous for even saying that something that like this could be better than Super Metroid or Metroid Fusion. I just feel like this is 2D Metroid perfected. The way Samus moves in this game is just flawless. It's so fluid. The controls are responsive. Just the first thing I always think about with this game is the controls, because they are just so darn good. Every time I boot this game up for another playthrough, I am just immediately satisfied with how great it controls. Samus kicks some serious butt with her melee counters and such, and just her ability to like grab enemies and shoot them in the face is just so satisfying to watch, dude. It really makes for some great bosses that are well designed with unique attack patterns that just fill up the screen. Just fantastic. And this was also significant for me and many other Metroid fans, because this was the conclusion of the story arc between Samus and the Metroids, which was just a big deal on its own, let alone the fact that she actually ran into real Chozo this time. Just absolutely incredible stuff. I love Metroid Dread. It is bar none my favorite Nintendo Switch game. Maybe that'll be dethroned by Metroid Prime 4 when it comes out this year, but as of right now, Dread has taken the top spot for me.
2022, I actually think, was probably Nintendo's weakest year in terms of game output, and I think this could be an effect from COVID, because COVID affected long past 2020, but between Mario Strikers Battle League and Nintendo Switch Sports, this year definitely left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. Not surprisingly, no one out of all the people I reached out to actually chose a game from 2022 as their favorite game on the Nintendo Switch, and I didn't want to just kind of skip this year. I felt like I should at least contribute something. Now, some games that I actually really were into that came out in 2022 was the games that carried me through 2022 for the Nintendo Switch were actually some of the third parties. And we're not talking about the third parties that much in this video, so I figured I'd at least show a couple of them a little bit of love. And the ones I've chosen from this year to give a little bit of a spotlight to are the Life is Strange games that released on the Nintendo Switch, as well as Pac-Man World Repack for the Nintendo Switch. Pac-Man World Repack is a remake of the original PS1 classic Pac-Man World, which is a kind of 2.5D platformer. Sure, it's not aged the best in a lot of aspects, but it's actually a pretty good remake in my opinion. It's not the longest game, and if you like your platformers, I do think that you should get Pac-Man World Repack. And then with the Life is Strange series, Life is Strange is a narrative-based series where, you go through a story, you're playing as a main protagonist, and that protagonist usually has some sort of ability or power that you need to use to help solve puzzles and work your way through a story. These games have a very heavy emotional impact for the most part, and they can get pretty deep, and I absolutely love them. So like I said, these games definitely carried me through 2022. I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have these games, because Nintendo just wasn't putting out this year in my opinion, and I'm very glad we got these at the very least. 2023, however, is actually a pretty decent year for Nintendo. They had quite a few big games. Another new Fire Emblem game, a remaster that looked like a remake of one of the most popular Metroid games, the next big Zelda game with Tears of the Kingdom, the next new 2D Mario game with Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and even a remake of an RPG that no one thought Nintendo would bring back, being Super Mario RPG. Let's see what people thought of the games from this year.
Ahoy! I'm Toontress, a Nintendo-focused content creator, and trying to figure out my favorite Switch exclusive game across all these 8 years was really tough. I mulled it over for a while, thought about a lot of different games, and I decided my favorite of them all is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Shocking, I know. The long hype build-up for this game, the incredible experiences from it. I loved this world and its characters, and I'll never forget experiencing this game for the very first time. I think a lot of people prefer Breath of the Wild as a whole, but not me. While it wasn't perfect, I adored Tears of the Kingdom. It ended up becoming my second favorite Zelda game, so with all of that in mind, maybe this was actually a really easy pick.
Hey there everybody, Amanda Van Heil here. There have been so many wonderful Switch games over the years, and it was really hard to pick just one favorite, but ultimately, I had to go with The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Breath of the Wild set a wonderful foundation for this game to build on. And Tears of the Kingdom, I just loved the full experience. First of all, just getting to revisit old friends was great, to seeing how much everybody has grown. I remember crying seeing how big Tulin had gotten. It was just so sweet. And the voice acting was fantastic. But one of the things to me that made Tears of the Kingdom stand out so much is just the entire launch experience and the community involvement. Everybody I knew was playing this game, and the launch itself was just absolutely huge. And it brought back a lot of that being a little kid on the playground, talking to your friends, going, hey, how'd you get through this part of this game? Or did you know that if you do this, this thing will happen? So it was just that whole community involvement. Friends were all talking to one another like, hey, where are you in the game? Hey, have you done this puzzle yet? How did you solve this side quest? And it was just so great to have that return to just playing and having a fun experience together.
What's up everyone, it's HMK, here for the fellow Bowser homie ZakPak, who's asked me to talk about my favorite Switch game of all time. And that's gonna be incredibly hard. The Switch is one of my favorite consoles ever, inside or outside Nintendo, and we are in the face of Switch 2. Now when it comes to my favorite title, I had to do a lot of soul searching, because I could say things like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, any of the Xenoblade games, and possibly that of Breath of the Wild. But honestly, in my core heart of hearts, I think it has to go to The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, the successor and sequel to Breath of the Wild. Now, Breath of the Wild did lay a lot of foundation when it comes to what you can find in Tears of the Kingdom, but I feel this adventure was not only bigger, better, it has so much more to enjoy and a level of freedom when it comes to tackling the game and freedom of creativity when it comes to creating weapons, zonai apparatuses or contraptions, and the fact that we have so many avenues in terms of story, lore that confuses and confides the mind, but of course creates conversation in the Zelda community and beyond, and the fact that Ganondorf is back. honestly, to have a story, a sequel to Breath of the Wild, as amazing that game was really cool to see something followed up on that in the world of Hyrule and all of these characters that we've come to know and love when it comes to the entirety of The Legend of Zelda and what we experienced in Breath of the Wild. So honestly, all that considered, with the dungeons, the shrines, the level of wonder and amusement that you can find in every little nook and cranny in Tears of the Kingdom, makes it my favorite game as a Zelda fan and as a video game fan when it comes to the Nintendo Switch.
Choosing a favorite game on the Nintendo Switch is really hard because I have so many, but if I have to narrow it down to one, I would say it's a game that I was extremely excited for at launch and did not disappoint. Pikmin 4. Pikmin 4 is one of my favorite games on the system just because of how fun it was to play. My anticipation immediately was through the roof for this game. I was really excited to see what the story could be, what the gameplay could be like, and they absolutely 100% delivered. They reinvented a lot of the gameplay in Pikmin 4, right? You have Ochi now, and you have all these different things that you can do. You have a lock-on cursor, which was a new type thing that they sort of experimented with a bit with Pikmin 3, but people were pretty upset that it wasn't just like that free-form thing. But I feel like a lot of people ended up getting over it, and for me, it wasn't that big of a deal because I still really enjoyed what we had there. We had all of the iconic Pikmin types back as well, which was such a great way to pay homage to it. And Ochi, the ultimate Pikmin himself, was so awesome because you could like swim and conquer new areas. Ochi's just like kind of opened up the world pretty immediately for you, and it felt like it didn't take really as long to get started as a lot of the Pikmin games do sometimes. Also, Dandori battles were really fun. The fact that we were finally able to go out at night and do night missions was cool. The way that they did it in sort of like a tower defense type vibe was really interesting to me. I'm hoping that they sort of expand on that and make it so you can just stay in the Pikmin world overnight and like not go back and then have to go out again because it's total pain in the ass. But Pikmin 4 is a type of game that I might have a couple complaints with, right? But at the end of the day, I think it is one of my favorite experiences on the Nintendo Switch, an experience that was absolutely heightened by the console itself, being able to play both on the go and docked at home, and just to see the franchise come back in such a way was magnificent. So Pikmin 4 is absolutely one of my favorite games ever, and thank you for having me.
Hello everybody, how's it going? My name is Alec, aka Alec and Stuff, and I'm here to talk to you about a little ditty that my friend Zach asked me to come up with for this 8th anniversary video for the Nintendo Switch. And today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite games, and I know you guys know it too. Carnival Games for Nintendo Switch. And okay, I couldn't keep the bit up any longer. It's not Carnival Games. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's a fine game. But my game that I've actually picked is going to be Super Mario Wonder. Some of my favorite things about Super Mario Wonder are the fact that it is not a new Super Mario Brothers game. And a couple of the reasons for that are that the visuals themselves obviously look a lot different. It's kind of styled in the way that a comic book might be, in the fact that even down to the facial expressions of enemies that you run into around the world, such as Goombas, they all react. They all react in fun little silly ways. So, for example, one of my favorite interactions is when Mario stomps on other Goombas. They tend to look a little scared as to like, oh crap, that's gonna be me next. And sometimes they run away, and like just little things like that throughout the environment are really, really tasteful in my opinion, and do a lot to add to the whimsicalness, the whimsy of Mario Brothers Wonder. Not only that, but the music as well supersedes pretty much anything that any of the new Super Mario Brothers games could come up with. But it also pushes the limits of Mario music as we know it, in a sense, thanks to the original compositions, not just rearrangements of classic tunes, even though I love those. My personal favorite of this bunch, to give you an example, is a level that's pretty early on. It's called Piranha Plants on Parade. Anyway, to tie that all up in a little knot, I think it's little things like that in the soundtrack that kind of give it a little bit more of a unique identity compared to some other Mario games from years past. And then lastly, just the sheer whimsy that we've already touched on of the game overall is enough for me to consider it not only one of the best Mario games on the Switch that you can play to date, but I also consider it probably one of the best 2D Marios ever. Argue with me if you want, but this whole thing to say, things like elephants, the Big Boo level, roller skating Koopas, and just so many other little things, so many more little things make this entry one of the most wonderful games that I think I've ever played. So anyway, hope that helps you out, Zach. Happy 8 years to Nintendo Switch, and bring me more wonderful games like Super Mario Bros. Wonder.
2024, aka last year, was another decent year for the Nintendo Switch. Given that the Switch at this point is dying down, there weren't a whole lot of big releases last year, but kinda like before, there were actually some pretty good supplemental releases here. Between a new game for Princess Peach showing that Nintendo still is willing to try and experiment a little bit, to reviving the Mario and Luigi series and even bringing back Nintendo World Championship of all things, to even releasing the best modern Mario Party that's been around since the Nintendo Wii. This year is honestly one of Nintendo's strongest ones as well, even if there weren't that many big, heavy-hitting titles. Let's see what people have to say about games coming out this year.
Hello humans, I'm Yo Schiller, and today I have a copy of Paper Mario RPG, which is the Japanese name for my favorite Nintendo Switch title, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, and that itself is a remake of a GameCube game of the same name. This is my favorite GameCube game, so it should stand to reason that this would become my favorite Nintendo Switch game, and it absolutely is. When it was announced, my mind could not even fathom that this exists, and it really shows the Nintendo Switch is capable of anything. It is the best console, handheld, hybrid system that Nintendo has ever made, and I'm so glad that not only was I able to live through this era, but that I was able to experience this on that same system, and that millions of other people will now have the opportunity to do the exact same thing. This game went on to become my favorite GameCube game because it really demonstrates the beauty of the element of gaming as a whole. It really utilizes the fact that it's a game and not, you know, a movie or a comic or anything of that nature. It incorporates every mechanic and every element and every way it conveys its ideas so beautifully that I wouldn't call it a perfect game, but it's a game that perfectly captures the gaming medium, if that makes sense. It is an otherwise fantastic game, and it was beautifully made onto the Nintendo Switch. It's a game that really got me into RPGs, this and Pokemon, and even then, there are a lot of non-RPG elements in this game that I wish would go on to become kind of its own thing. The storytelling in this game is great. I remember I gave a copy of this game to my friends over at work, and one of them was even saying, like, it's kind of weird that this is a Mario game, but it's fun that it's a Mario game. And I'm so glad that he explained it that way. It's just such a unique type of game, and even if you don't care about any of that, it's otherwise just a solid RPG, just a fun little adventure that you grow to appreciate the more you play it. And every time I think back on this game, the original or the remake, I just have pleasant memories. And to throw on a quick little tangent to explain why this game is so significant to me, it's not only the reason that I've started wearing blue Yoshi attire, it's the reason my username is Yoshiller. When I played the original GameCube game back in the day, I got to the point where you get to have Yoshi as a partner. Oh, I guess he's not in this box. He is on this box though. You get to have a little Yoshi partner, and it can come in different colors. And the first time I played Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, I got a blue one, and I nicknamed it Yoshiller. It was the username I came up with at the time. I didn't want to have a generic nickname like Spike or George or something like that, so I came up with Yoshiller. At the time, I could only spell it with one L. And then when I created an account all these years later, I was so inspired by this game that I used the username Yoshiller. And now I wear a Yoshi hat everywhere, and I wanted to move on from that, so now I wear a blue Yoshi hat in honor of the Yoshi that I got in Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. So this game really did influence the trajectory of my life. I know I kind of spoke in vague sentences, but really, this game does mean a lot to me. It really is just fantastic that it exists on the Switch. It represents so many different things about Nintendo and about the Switch and about gaming in general that I cannot recommend it enough, and it is my favorite Nintendo Switch title as a result.
Gamers! Super Mario Party Jamboree is without a doubt my favorite game on the Nintendo Switch. I never thought that in the 7 years of this console, that there would be a Mario Party game that would stand fist to fist against the older entries in the series. And what I mean by that is a lot of people are pretty familiar, at least if you're subscribed to this channel, that the ND Cube Mario Parties aren't exactly the best, but this one is like, how do you lock in so hard for a new game? Oh my god. 7 boards, which was 3 more than the last original game, Superstar Saga 5, but that's not the point here. Over 100 mini-games, which they stepped it up from Superstars, which was already crazy in its own right. And then 22 characters. Although, I know some people are pretty, like, not the biggest fan that it was only 2 new characters, but, like, dude, come on, 22? Can't pick one over 20? Whatever, I do actually understand. They cut Dry Bones and Hammer Bro. And Pom Pom. The online modes in this game are really good. Obviously there's the base Mario Party mode, which isn't the most fun to do online without being in a call of some sort, but it's fun. Koopathlon. I love that they brought back the mode from Star Rush, the Coinathlon. I loved playing that, and so the fact that they brought it back and made it bigger was fantastic. Bowser's Kaboom Squad, that's what it's called. Love that mode. I love that it's such a weird niche thing. It almost reminds me of the side mode from the Super Duel mode from Mario Party 5, where it's just such a different like thing, and it's just like, yeah, like it's a side mode. Of course it is. Like, what? It's just such a silly, stupid gimmick, and I love it. I can definitely say that this is one of my favorite games, and it is really tough because I want to say it's my favorite, but I need to let it sit in for like a year. But ask anyone in the Mario Party community, and they will definitely tell you that this is an absolutely strong entry in the series, and definitely a big recommendation if you're looking to get a Mario Party game, or a party game in general. One last thing before I end this part off. I wanted to thank Zach for letting me be a part of this massive video. I can't wait to see what everyone else says. I'll see you gamers later. Almost screwed that up.
2025 has just begun, and all we have at the current moment is Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, which many people have been playing. But we also have Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition coming out, later this month, that people are also looking forward to, as it is the last Xenoblade game that needs to make its way to the Nintendo Switch. And while there still may be a few more Nintendo titles on their way to the Nintendo Switch 1, we're really closing this chapter of Nintendo's life. The Nintendo Switch 2 is on its way. We'll be hearing more about it in a month, and I am sure that everyone is excited, and I am so grateful and so happy to have built my channel upon, the releases of the Nintendo Switch, whether you were here for my Luigi's Mansion 3 days, that early on, or my hype of Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, the remake of one of my favorite 3D platformers, or even the Mario Party craze with Mario Party Superstars and Super Mario Party Jamboree. No matter when you joined the channel, no matter how you celebrated the Switch's life with me, thank you for being here, thank you for celebrating, and thank you to those of you who subscribed and stuck around the entire time. So, thank you everyone so much for watching. Thank you to all the special guests I had in today's video. And until next time, you guys, see you in the next one.